Okay, the second major animal group are the cnidarians, phylum Cnidaria. And so these are the jellyfish, corals, and sea anemones. And it's a major group. So it's our second one on the talking about the invertebrates. And so we'll have to know the characteristics of the cnidaria and why we think they branched off early. So this is the second major branch, but we think these are true animals, but they're different from most other organisms in that they have radial symmetry and again still have only 2 layers of cells, not 3 layers of cells. So they're not triploblastic, they're diploblastic. Um, and Although they are more complex than sponges, they're really basically at the tissue level of organization, that they don't have true organs, but they're getting more closer to it. They have really highly coordinated cell types that are in very specific arrangements. Um, but they don't have a reproductive system with multiple organs connected, or circulatory system, or excretory system. It's still mostly cells acting on their own. Um, and then diffusion and osmosis are enough to do most of what needs to be done. They have no brain, no coordinated nervous system. They do have a network of nerve cells called the nerve net that's connected up with touch receptors, gravity receptors, and light receptors. One of the key things about them is cnidarians have specialized cells called cnidocytes embedded in their epithelial layer, and these cnidocytes have a specialized organelle called the nematocyst. So a cnidocyte is a stinging cell, and the organelle is a stinging organelle that has a little trigger, and then when the trigger is touched, that releases a filament that everts and injects a poison into their prey. And so these guys carry venom, and they're predators. They use these nematocysts to capture prey, and then they use epithelial muscular cells to pull the tentacles and deposit the prey in the mouth. And so, very simple strategy, but it works. Their body plan has a single opening leading to a blind ending gastrovascular cavity. They use extracellular digestion. This cavity is also the site of some nutrient exchange, it's gas exchange, and wastes are go into that. And also, it's where the reproductive cells will be usually expelled from. These guys are very thin. Two layers to the body wall, an epidermis and a gastrodermis, and then a jelly layer, the mesoglia, between them. Many of them have two body forms. You see a polyp form where the mouth is, or the oral end is facing upwards, and then the polyp has tentacles that wave upwards. And then you have a free, and this polyp form is usually attached to the substrate. And then you can have the medusa form, which is the jellyfish free swimming form. And in this case, the oral surface, or the mouth, is facing downward. And then the gastrovascular cavity is up, and then the tentacles are usually arranged around the mouth. And then the whole kind of umbrella-shaped organism pulsates to swim, and it doesn't swim all that well, but it does swim, and that pulsate also gets tentacles to move quite a bit, and that's where the stinging cells are located. The interior gastrovascular space serves as kind of a fluid, a hydrostatic skeleton, and when the muscles contract, the pressure in there rises, and that helps them change shape in a way that gives them swimming. Some polyps will build or secrete a skeleton of either protein, like a cartilaginous or chitinous protein, or calcium carbonate around themselves. And so this forms an external skeleton, and these guys are often colonial, so you can have thousands of them. And with the corals, they can build up huge reefs visible from space. Okay. So this cnidaria and polyp form can exist where both are in a single life cycle, and usually, often what you'll have is a colonial polyp form that will bud off the free-swimming medusa, and the medusa is often the sexual form, which will form sperm and egg, and then again we go to a free-swimming ciliated larva. This appears to be the basic plan for lots of animals. And then the larva will settle down and form new polyps. Um, let's see. The what else do we want to say? Cnidarian life cycle. Some cnidarians occur only as polyps, other exist as medusa, but many alternate. Both phases are diploid. In the medusa forms the gametes, yada yada yada. Most of them have separate sexes. Individuals are either male or female. The polyp is the colonial form, and so you can have large forms. So cnidaria is very simple. Few organs, tissue level organization, very poor record for fossilization until the corals appear. And then we have about 500 million years ago, that's when the corals appear, and so we have lots of fossil corals. These are predators. They can eat large complex organisms like fish. We have old fossils of cnidarians that are soft-bodied. When they pulsate, if they wash up on a sandy beach, they produce a typical impression form. And so here's a fossil of a medusa that occurred during the Cambrian. And we think we have fossils of these going back into Precambrian. And they almost go back as early as we find fossil sponges. So we think 600, 700 million years ago. Okay, I'm going to go through the different types of cnidarians. There's only one type that I'll expect you to know. But there are different types. One group are the Hydrozoa. Okay, these are colonial forms that include the marine or the freshwater species, the hydra, which is shown there. But it also includes things like the Portuguese man-o'-war, which is a colonial form. Usually in these, the polyp is the major organism. Some of these are very poisonous. A large number of them, mostly marine. The largest ones are in marine waters, but there are some in fresh waters. Okay, there's also a class Skyphozoa. These are large jellyfish. Fewer species, but again, some widely distributed and some quite large. Okay, and then the Anthozoa. This is the largest group, the corals. These are corals and sea anemones. You should know the Anthozoa. These are marine predators that are colonial. They also tend to harbor algae in their tissue, so they can make food by feeding these algae in sunlight. And then many corals secrete a skeleton of calcium carbonate, and so they form reefs. And so these are really important for marine ecosystems. They provide the habitat for tropical reefs and even some temperate reefs as well. Around barrier islands, that's usually the coral reefs. And it's these symbiotic algae dinoflagellates that can do photosynthesis. So these can get food two ways, from these algae and then by consuming fish. Okay, then there are the box jellies. These are, again, another free-swimming jellyfish, but they're kind of cuboidal in shape. They have like a four-part symmetry. Some very poisonous and can be fatal to humans. And then there's the Starozoa, the star jellies, which have a kind of a branched polyp. And it resembles a medusa in most ways, but is attached to the substrate opposite the mouth. Okay, so what's unique about these guys is that they're true animals. They form from two layers in embryonic development. We see some of the same patterns in cleavage with them as we see in more complex animals. And so we do see ectoderm and endoderm. The RNA sequences suggest they're quite different from all the bilaterally symmetrical organisms, and there's some indication that they might be close to ctenophorans. But they have nerve tissue, and they have pretty close to true muscle tissue, so they're part of the Eumetazoa. And so we think they're pretty far away from the parazoa, the sponges. And again, the best evidence here comes from that ribosomal RNA sequences.